Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, and I am really excited to bring you another song on this journey through this fan-based and band-endorsed podcast, going through all the music of Uriah Heep from beginning to end, everything I could find. Been getting some information that there's some songs that may not have appeared as bonus tracks on some of the deluxe editions. So digging into that as I have some time, but those are all way down the line. We'll get to those hopefully as long as I can find a version of it. I'm happy to review it. Again, you know, that's all the studio stuff. I don't get into the live stuff. I may at some point review a live album, but most likely I'm just going to be sticking with the studio stuff. Now, before we get into today's show, of course, today is Monday, and that is our gratitude day on the show, and we have some people to thank, and we're just going to get right into that. Let's first start out with everyone who has left a review. We had 16 five-star reviews on Apple Podcasts, and it's somehow magically again dropped down to 15. That happens sometimes. Usually that one comes back. I don't know what goes on behind the scenes, what makes that work and what doesn't. Maybe, you know, users delete their membership or whatever it is. I have no idea. But in any case, thank you to everyone who has shared posts, liked the show, told others about it, left comments, left feedback, sent me messages, but most importantly has shared that with other people. And part of that sharing is the ratings, the star ratings, or even doing a review on Apple Podcasts. That is the best place to help reach the most people, because that is the place where most people listen to podcasts. But, you know, if you're on Stitcher, if you're on Spotify, Podbean, wherever, you know, please feel free to throw a like on it or leave a comment or, you know, do a rating, because every little bit helps reach more people who also might enjoy the music of Uriah Heep as much as we do. I would say even more, but is that even possible? I don't think so. Now, there are other people that have helped the show out, which are also greatly appreciated. And let's get into our patrons at the $5 tier. Kenny Wymore. Kenny, I'm so sorry I pronounced your name wrong on the last show. Thank you so much for letting me know. I have corrected it on my sheet. I certainly don't want to misrepresent anyone. And, you know, I get texts, so a lot of times you can't tell in the text how things are pronounced. But it is Wymore. Thank you, Kenny. Also, at the $3 tier, we have Peter Voss, Goran Eriksson, and Frank Thielgaard Mortensen. Thank you, folks. And then at the $1 tier, we have the Protected from the Elements airtight gravesite. Thank you guys for your donations. It really helps. It helps me pay for the show and all the materials and everything that I need to do to keep the show going without too much detriment to me financially. But obviously, I put the show on from the beginning. I'm very happy to do it, but this helps quite a bit. So thank you guys very much. If you're interested in signing up for the Patreon account or would like to make a donation via PayPal, you can go to scotthaskin.com, click on the Uriah Heep podcast link, and then just click on the appropriate button at the bottom of the page. It is just that easy. Now, of course, there are some other people who have helped make this show what it is, like it or not. And the first one I'd like to thank, as always, is my graphic artist, Scott Lazinski, who did an amazing job on the logo. Had two options, a day and a nighttime logo, which I just pretty much switch off per album. So you kind of know, okay, if you're in the dark logo, we must have just changed seasons. We're back to the white logo. We changed seasons again. So we're on a different album. And absolutely great stuff. I do have some merchandise that will be coming available. If you're interested in it now, I've got coffee mugs and T-shirts. I'll put up a couple pictures somewhere. And if you guys are interested, let me know. I don't have any kind of official delivery system for those right now, but I'm looking at doing something with the Deep Dive Podcast Network, because they've started up a little thing, and they have some great shows to check out, which we'll talk about in a moment. But I also want to thank Audionamics, who I will not do a podcast without. I would find it so painstaking to do a podcast without their product IDC, or Instant Dialogue Cleaner. which helps me filter out all the background noise, airplanes, dogs, cats scratching at the window, children playing outside, whatever it is, my computer fan. This takes it all out in a very, very simple user interface. And I can't imagine going back to the days where I was podcasting before I had that. So thank you guys at Audionamics very, very much. And of course, to my friend, the director of social media for all of Uriah Heep stuff, Dave White, who has just been a great supporter and has shared every show on their media, just been fantastic about it. And I know I'm giving you a lot of work doing 4 shows a week, Dave. So thank you very much for jumping in and helping spread the word about the podcast. It helps me a lot because you have a much bigger audience than I do. Now, my brothers in the Deep Dive Podcast Network, who are just a great bunch of guys as I'm getting to know them even more. Of course, we talked about John and Nate at the Deep Purple Podcast. John was on the Easy Livin' episode, and Nate will be coming on an episode here very soon, maybe even this week. Okay, it's this week. The Simple Man at Skynyrd Reconsidered Podcast, which is a podcast about the music of Leonard Skynyrd. Terry T-Bone Mathley and his new show, T-Bone Prime Cuts on the Other Side, where he's 2 shows in and just done a couple of absolutely amazing interviews. Got to check that out. Rye over at Sabbath Bloody Podcast, who has already covered all of the music of Black Sabbath. He's been doing this far longer than I have, and he is now into the music of Ozzy Osbourne. And then last but not least at all, our friends Paul, Joe, and David over at the Lap of the Pods podcast, which is a podcast all about the music of Queen. And the interesting thing is, some of these podcasts are an album per show, some are a song per show, some are multiple people, some are solo people. It's really a good variety of things, but they're all very enjoyable shows. Even if you're not interested in the bands themselves so much, they're just enjoyable shows to listen to. Like, I knew nothing much about Leonard Skynyrd. Didn't really care about them, nothing personal. It's just, the couple songs I knew just weren't my thing. But I absolutely enjoy listening to the Simple Man talk about the songs and the history of the band and all that. It's very fascinating. So, like I said, even if you're not all that interested in the band, check out the shows because they're great shows to listen to. And now, a couple other people that are very important. Ace, who is the manager for Uriah Heep, also Thin Lizzy and several other bands. Great guy. He's been so helpful with me getting this podcast started and ongoing with questions and little things that I ask him here and there. But he has a show called Ace on Music, which you can find on Stitcher and YouTube. It's a fantastic show. Link is in the show notes. Go check that out. Very, very informative. Has a couple of interviews he does here and there. Just some great stuff. So check that out. And of course, our friend Allegra, who does the website gottahear'emall.com, where you can read information about bands like Deep Purple, Emerson, Lake and Palmer / Emerson, Lake and Powell, their touring history, and other tidbits along the way, and some other bands as well. Check out her site. It's there's so much to learn there and very interesting stories. Now, of course, you can reach the show wherever you're listening. Obviously, you figured that out, so yay. But you can also find the show on the website, scotthaskin.com, and then just click on the Uriah Heep podcast link where I have links to the Uriah Heep YouTube channel, their website, which Dave White takes care of, and then all the other things. There's a link to all the interviews that I've done so far with members of the band, past and present, as well as like Phil Lanson's books that he's got out. He's got 2 now in his trilogy. And Russell Gilbrook just did a video that blows mine away on the double shuffle. He's just so excited. I love how enthusiastic he is about drumming and and helping to teach people about things. And, the shuffle is one of those things that if you don't understand it, it can be very confusing. And he brings it out in a very understandable way. Much better job than I did. I think mine was more for people that don't know anything about music, and his was from people who don't know anything about music to people who think they know everything about music. Very well presented, very talented guy, and really nice guy too. So check all that out on the webpage. I also have an individual page for each album. And then inside that, if the episode of this podcast is aired, there's a page for each song. And within that is the mini player that will host the episode, because the player on the main page will only host, I think it's 20. And then they start getting bumped off at the bottom. So if you want to hear any of the individual songs, just go to that album, go to that song, and the player will be right there for you, as well as lyrics, who was playing on the song, all that good stuff. And of course, I've got links to all the Deep Dive Network brothers and Gotta Hear 'Em All and Ace and all that good stuff. So that's all on the website. You can also follow the show on Facebook, where I post every day that the episodes come out, which is Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. And then you can follow us on Twitter at Heep Podcast and Instagram at Uriah Heep Podcast. If you want to get on the mailing list, which I mail, I think I've mailed once so far. So it's not like it's going to flood your inbox, but that will give you an entry into the contest where I will draw a prize every month. And if you are a Patreon member, you will get a second entry just for being a Patreon. It's one of the perks. And you'll get a double entry into the drawing that I will start doing here in February. I haven't figured out what day I want to draw, but I'll figure that out at some point. So it will be this month. So get on that mailing list. Anyway, that's it. All the house cleaning stuff. Let's get to the songs. Oh, no, there is one more thing. I almost forgot, and I can't believe. So there was a fairly recent episode of Ask Mick, and you can watch all the Ask Mick episodes on his YouTube channel, which is on Uriah Heep's YouTube channel, which is, again, on that main Uriah Heep page on my website. And it has all the Ask Micks. He's in the mid-90s now of episodes, so that's quite a bit. There's also Mick Mondays. There's some other interviews. There's some stuff that Phil Lanzon has done with songwriting and really, really cool stuff. So check all that out if you're a fan of the band. Obviously, you wouldn't be here, most likely, if you weren't, unless you're just curious, but there's lots of goodies on that site. So go check out their YouTube page. But there is a recent Ask Mick, and I'll have the link in the show notes, where he talked about Sweet Lorraine. So go check that out. It's interesting. I did not realize that was such a big hit in America. And of course, it's a song about a party, so that's how we do things here a lot of times. So why wouldn't it be? Certainly makes a lot of sense. But now let's get into the song itself. Here is Sweet Lorraine. What an interesting and unique and wonderful sound this song has right off the bat. It's, it sounds so powerful for a mid-tempo song, but those keyboards are just huge. And I'm going to guess that is a Moog synth and not a theremin on this one. I don't know that you can make a theremin oscillate quite like that, although it could have been run through an oscillator, so I shouldn't say that. But what kind of, I don't know that much about how a Moog synth plays because I've never played one, but what's interesting to me is the fact that it can go from, such a wide span of notes so smoothly, which is more of something that a theremin would do than a keyboard. But there are synths that can be, manipulated so that they slide from one note to another. I don't know how much of a gap the Moog covers as far as that goes, but so I'm not sure which one it is, but it's a very cool sound and definitely works great for this song. It adds a lot of power to it, which I really like, and just off to a great start for this one as the vocals come in fairly quickly this time. On top of that, you've got some great, somewhat muted strumming coming in on the guitar. Obviously, there's a wah pedal in there. Sounds great. It's a really good bridge from where that the rest of the music stops, and just the drums and the guitar keep going to just kind of keep that momentum. And really like the choice there. It was a really good sound, and it really rocks.
Would you like to take this magic potion with me on a trip to a cosmic playground far beyond? She understands, she's been before. It's in her hands to find the door.
I absolutely love the way that this song is mixed. I think it's flawless. And the blend of vocals going from the verse into the pre-chorus is just perfect. It's subtle. Really just a thickener, nothing too out of place or crazy just yet as far as harmonies or anything goes. Just a really nice, straightforward vocal. The bass obviously is walking up and down quite a bit, playing some very interesting stuff, keeping it moving, but you've got some solid keyboard and guitar that just kind of lock this song into place, and I really like this so far.
Sweet Lorraine, let the party carry on. You and I will sing the sea. Sweet Lorraine, let the party carry on. You and I
It's pretty gutsy to have a song that has that many stops in it, but yet amazingly keeps feeling like it's moving forward. A lot of times stops will kind of take you out of that groove, but it really works in this song. It's still a bold move though. It's risky because you could lose somebody in the flow of things just because you're stopping the music, even though you have a filler. The basic beat of the song is cutting back, which is what the rhythm section is for. So I think it's a pretty gutsy move, but in this case, it certainly works well.
Sincerity, she understands 'cause she's been before. It's in her hands to find the door. So
I really like what the guitars are playing there during the verse. It's that same kind of strumming, but a little bit bigger, I think, and really carries that verse quite well. We get so stuck sometimes as songwriters, just saying, okay, well, this is how the verse goes, and we kind of mentally copy and paste a performance in our head of what to play when the next verse comes. But one thing I've always liked about Heep is that they really don't settle for that. They'll throw in different things to make it different and interesting from one verse to another. And there's a really nice just guitar enhancement on that last verse. So really cool stuff.
Sweet Lorraine, let the party carry on. You and I will swim the sea. Sweet Lorraine, let the party carry on. You and I can feel the breeze.
Obviously, some really nice work there. I liked the fact that it was doubled, split from ear to ear. You could tell it was two different tracks because they were slightly off at a couple of points, but that's fine. I mean, it's great that he double tracked it because it gives you a slight variation on the performance. Everything's not exactly perfect, which I always enjoy, but it's a great sound. It sounds really rich and full. I think it's kind of weird because when the everything drops out and you've just got the bass and drums playing a little bit jazzy, they're so far in the background that the keyboards seem a little bit overpowering. But as the drums and bass get louder, then everything kind of rebalances again. So it kind of throws you off a little bit from a mixing standpoint, but it's not too bad. And just a really strong keyboard part, nice little jazzy part that's unexpected playing in the background, and then just, a hard hitting drum roll and back into the chorus again. This song definitely is a party. There's no doubt about that. And it's one of those songs that you feel like it could just go on and on forever as people dance into the night. And I really like songs like that. There are things that I like to think stretch way beyond the actual ending or fade out of a song, that there's just this joyous celebration of people being in unity together, celebrating or just enjoying each other's company as the night goes on. To give you kind of a visual reference of that, if you've ever seen the movie Carlito's Way, I don't want to spoil anything, so I'll just say there's a scene where a poster sort of comes to life, and that feeling right there, what's going on in the poster, that would be the best visual representation I could think of. But there's a few songs I've known like that over the years, where it just feels like this is a magical moment that's just going to last until everyone's just exhausted and everyone's just going to be smiling and having fun, whether they're, dancing or hanging out or whatever it is. And I love moments like that. I love songs that make me feel that way. And this one certainly does. I really like in this part here what the guitar and the keyboard sound like together. Just a really nice balance, not only of volume and panning, but also just the tonal qualities of what the guitar is doing, what the keyboard or synthesizer is doing, I should say, and just a really nice blend there. So that's a fun addition to listen to right there. And then, of course, the song just keeps doing these breakdowns that are really amazing, because it flows despite the fact that there's a lack of that rhythmic flow to it. But I will say, when there are the drum fills in the choruses, they're very smooth, very flowy. I like drum fills like that. Lee Kerslake was phenomenal at those kind of things. Really doesn't have to play fast to make something good. And in a song like this, the way that he's just alternating between the toms and the snare really works great. That's something that's sort of traditional for him to do. But just a great performance and a very well constructed piece of music. I'd really love to hear where that was going, because I felt like there was a shift in the vocal dynamic there a little bit coming. But I always get curious when songs fade out. I always wonder, how did they stop the song in the studio when they were recording? And, Heep is big on fade outs. They're very common. But this is one of those ones I would really love to just see what happened after. And it very well could be that it just ended like 2 seconds after this fade did. But it's like I said, being one of those songs that's kind of like this ongoing party, really makes me curious to know what happened after I left the party, which is at the end of the fade. But great song, just a great song. It's solid. It doesn't have a fast tempo to it. It's just really moderate, but it works. And it's fun that you could have a song that feels like a party without it being something that's up tempo. I think that in itself is a little bit magical, at least to my ears, and certainly something that I enjoy very much, and just love the sound of it. I think the synth is an interesting choice. Love the dynamics between the guitar and that sound. Just a great song. So that's it for this episode, guys. Thank you so much for joining me for Sweet Lorraine. And we will be back tomorrow with another episode of Uriah Heep, the Magicians Podcast. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magicians Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show, and thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!